Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Mindshare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a two-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals, as well as REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. Learn more about our sponsor by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 239. Born and raised in Toronto, Canada, he has over 8 years of experience working in the real estate franchising world of RE/MAX Canada and is currently serving as a director of regional development, where his commitment towards driving growth has helped propel RE/MAX Canada to number one in both residential units and volumes sold. His passion for his work is evident in his continuous pursuit of excellence. He is a graduate from the Gordon S. Lang School of Business, receiving a commerce degree with a minor in real estate and housing. His dedication, industry expertise, and commitment to personal growth have earned him a respected reputation in the Canadian real estate community. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare podcast is Director of Regional Development for RE/MAX Canada, Simon Schneider. Simon, welcome to the Mindshare podcast.
Thanks for having me, David. It's really great to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. I feel like this is a long time coming for us, man. A lot of back and forth DMs for probably the past few years of just following each other's journey from a purely personal and probably social standpoint. But it's an honor to have you here, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. And before we get started, and you probably hear this all the time, but I have to say, you have the perfect voice for radio. My mother, when she was angry at me when I was younger, she used to tell me that I had the perfect face for radio. So I don't know if that's quite a compliment you want to hear oftentimes, but nice to be here with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no, I thank you for the kind words. I was probably pleased to hear the voice rather than the face for radio. That's probably a better one than the latter. But no, seriously, man, thank you for that. So tell me, man, as I look back at your journey, and probably when I talk about that, and although I don't know it wholeheartedly, I would say you grew up in a world of real estate, and I can tell you I did very much the same. Living, breathing it, even well before even coming into the industry and working in it. How would you define the life in real estate? Like the realities around what the day-to-day really looks like for not only the person involved, but the families that surround everybody?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. I was born and raised, my father being a submaster franchisor for RE/MAX Holdings. It was called RE/MAX Integra. Started with the eastern side of Canada and was really just hit the ground running, selling franchises, going across Ontario, starting really utilizing the 401 as his corridor for growth. But then expanding into Atlantic Canada. And, just being in a family, it's constantly at the dinner table. You're constantly on the road, whether you're going to hockey practice, sports games. You're hearing the conversations he's having. And it's something that you kind of really want to take after and be a part of and aspire to be when you grow up. So it's something I'm grateful for. It's something that I think helped give me a little bit of a head start going into my career. And it's something that had its challenges along its ways too. Not seeing your parents growing up is a little bit challenging, but he was always one that was always trying to better the family, whether that's for the expansion of the business, which then provided a quality of life for our family, but also his ability to kind of be a father and, be willing to hop into the arena, tie the skates and say, go get them. So that's what it was like. And I really enjoyed it.
It's cool. I go back to a time where I've gotten to know my geography of the city because of my father driving around to open houses and doing showings and dropping off keys or picking up keys, and really spend a lot of time in the car with my dad driving around the city. And it's funny because I can see a bedroom of one of the townhouses that's just, I think it's south of Casa Loma or maybe just north of it. but they were brand new at the time. And I remember my father was showing one, and there's, there was toys there, and he made me sit in this one room, and just I was able to play with the toys while my dad showed the property. And it's funny because if I go back in time, I mean that's 35 some years ago, and you still have these glimpses of moments that you spent with, your dad, my dad particularly, in the car driving around doing real estate. Now, you mentioned sports as well, and I know you're a sports guy. Um, And I know the, I guess, journey that I went through when it comes to time and how much time my father was able to put towards, let's say, family versus sports versus whatever. Did your dad miss a lot of sports when you were growing up? Like, was he there most of the time for you? How did that impact, I guess, the path going forward in what your path in life was going to be? I mean, did that show you, hey, I want to be in real estate? Did it say to you, hey, you know what? Based on all the time my dad was taking away from this, I don't even want to go near this industry.
Yeah, I think it was a healthy combination. He really prioritized our family through and through, but he focused on growing the business, and he was just resilient when it came to that. And his passion was one that I aspired to be like as well. Yeah, absolutely. We had family friends. I had parents of other teammates taking me to sports games. And that really kind of helped grow me. But at the same token, when he came to those specific games, it made it extra special. You talk about going to those townhomes. I have clear memories of pulling over the sedan car on the side of the road so we can put the antenna on the back of the car to connect across seas. It was really incredible to kind of watch some of that progress. And as the business started to do a little bit better, as our franchisees really started to grow their businesses as well, he got to spend more and more time with our family. So I wouldn't trade a little bit more of financial wealth or material riches for the well-being that our family had as a result of the parenting from both my mother and my father, for that matter.
It's always good to hear, right? It's I think that one of the biggest challenges that we've got in this industry right now, or in general, and this could be sales, this could be real estate, is time is always of the essence. And we hear from people oftentimes how busy they are. And something that's really come to light recently is that, are you busy or are you productive? And then what are you doing during your days? Have you got your days in check? Have you got them in order? And I know as a father, having two children, the time that I spend with my children is of the utmost importance. Is at the top of the list for me, and I do everything I possibly can to make sure that I am not sacrificing that time. Now that doesn't come without its, little bouts of anxiety or whatnot, knowing how much more there is to get done in a day, yet doing everything I possibly can not to pick up that phone and be looking at the phone or distracted when I'm with my children. And I mean, again, these are all the little tiny memories that I had growing up in this industry, being a little guy, watching my father do it. And then as we talk about sports, I mean, when we think about sports, some can be a real individual game, others can be a team game. What parallel do you see though when it comes to teamwork in business and teamwork in sports? And that's whether you're somebody running a business that is, as part of a team or not. Where's that? Do you see that parallel there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of synergies to compare when considering sports, but also in the working world. First and foremost, you're only as good as your weakest link, right? And so if your weakest player is going out there on a power play and you don't take a opportunity of scoring when it's usually a higher percentage chance, it's going to be weak. Vice versa. If you bring someone who's inexperienced, who hasn't done their homework, who hasn't studied going into a meeting, who the client is who you're meeting or what the objectives of the meetings are, they're going to underperform. Just like in school, if you were to show up on an exam and you didn't study, you didn't prepare, you're more than likely going to fail the exam, right? So it's critical. Preparation is what I find is probably the most important, and making sure that you have those open lines of communication within your team and that they're constantly sharing with each other, what is the action item, what is the deliverable from this meeting, and what do we hope to get from it?
Isn't it amazing? I love what you just said there, right? Because that parallel between sports and business. And again, we bring up sports because you and I just, being passionate for sports itself. Communication, preparation, effort,
Mm-hmm.
three core fundamentals, no matter what we're doing in life. And that's something that, again, no matter what, still takes a discipline, right?
Yeah,
The
and
discipline.
setting boundaries too, right, David? Like, don't get
That's a good one.
distracted with little items, right? And I'm a big fan of the one touch rule. So something comes across your desk, you focus on it, you touch it once, you put it to the side. Next, something comes across your desk, you touch it once, you focus on it, you put it to the side. And of course, utilizing the calendar. It's absolutely critical to prioritize your time, being efficient. My Austrian and German heritage absolutely loves the efficiencies in life. So how do we get the most out of time? Because it's the one finite resource that every single human in this world has the same amount of. We have 24 hours in the day, and how do we make the most of it? The other great one is the 3 text rule. Simon, I need this. Okay, let me do this. No, I need this. Pick up the phone after 3 texts, right? It's how much more efficient are you going to be from going back and forth, texting via emails versus picking up the phone and being a lot more efficient with your time.
You know what? It's funny you brought that up. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. They had sent me a message on something. And typically speaking, when they send a message, they can be a little bit spicy with their words. But I know the individual. And I know if I have that same conversation with that individual in person, it's not meant to necessarily be as, and I don't know why I just used the word spicy, but I'm going to use it again and say it's not meant to be that way. And what I want to add on to what you just said about the text is email, text messages, they lose context. They have no context. So when it comes to emotions, when it comes to what you really mean, when it comes to whether or not you're smiling, whether you're looking them in the eye, you can't do the same thing you can by getting on a phone with somebody or having a face-to-face conversation. And so I would add on to that if you're at that point where it's, again, 3, and now it's like pick up the phone, there's a lot more reasons why to pick up that phone than, let's say, even just clarifying or just making sure that we're being more efficient. But I also look at it and say, well, at some point with a lot of back and forth, people can start to get to that point where there's a miscommunication of what's actually trying to be conveyed. And at that point, that can take a relationship, that can take any opportunity and really blow it up. I watched an email thread with a client of mine the other day, back and forth with somebody that didn't want to get on the phone. They just wanted to email. My client shared the thread with me just so I could get the context. And I thought, this thing went wrong almost from the second message. Because again, we're missing the point of what needs to happen. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is I love what you just said about the 3 text and then pick up that phone for efficiency. And I want to add on that, again, none of that stuff has much context around it. So if you want to build a relationship, you want to have a better opportunity, you want to have an experience that people are going to remember, they're going to want to talk about after the fact, you've got to get on the phone, you've got to get in person, you've got to put in the effort to do that.
Absolutely. Very well said.
So what's your role at Remax now? Like what are you focused on the daily? Like, I know we said regional development, Ontario, Atlantic Canada, but just share more, I guess, your words, kind of what are you up to on a regular basis over there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, fundamentally our role in the region development department is to really support our broker owners and our agents to be the best versions of themselves. And they do that through utilizing the value proposition that we create at head office. So whether that's through our marketing team, our tech team, our training team, preferred vendors, or some of the world-class partnerships that we've been able to create in this past couple of years has been really valuable for the agents and the broker owners to lean into, to tap into, and to enhance their business. We have a saying, you're in business to our franchisees. We say you're in business for yourself, not by yourself. And really what we're here to do is to support you guys from the back end to make sure that they can really continue to recruit, continue to retain their agents, and ultimately serve the clients and the consumer in the space to the best of their ability. Because when you do those 3 things critically, it's a recipe for success. I always say you get into the franchise industry for 4 reasons. 4 is kind of the loose one on the last, but first and foremost, you have a passion for real estate. You love what you do, and it's something that really excites you, and you wake up every day and you want to go do it. Number 2, you want to make some money along the way because, let's face it, money makes the world go round, and those are the things that you get to spend on your loved ones. 3, asset creation. That's the real valuable one. That's different from being an agent to being a broker owner. And 4 is exit strategy or succession. And those are the 4 real pillars to being a franchisee, to being a broker owner in our network, and to what we want to do and to support so that you can create valuation through your asset so that down the road you can hand it off to either a family member and top agent within the brokerage who you think is credible enough to take that role, or to you just simply sell it off to reap some of the benefits that you have done while heavy lifting, while building that asset. So that's kind of the day-to-day. I hope I summarized it well there.
Yeah, no, you did. And I wanted to come back to this, as you said, this was number one, having a passion for real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Do us all a favor. Define that a little further, because and let me just preface that when I bring that up and say, people say they love real estate, right? Why'd you get in? I love real estate. What do you love about real estate? Is it the sales? Is it the buildings? Is it the architecture? Is it the fact that you can sit in it? Like, what is it that you love? And that's why it's interesting. I mean, you brought it up, but how would you define having a passion for real estate?
I think the biggest thing from my standpoint is the people that come with it and helping people progress their careers as well. I was fortunate enough. I do a lot of travel for work, and one of the regions that I'm responsible for looking over is Atlantic Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. And in early April, I was actually able to go out to St. John's, Newfoundland, which, by the way, are some of the nicest people in this.
I was about to say exactly that and say, like, you get some of the best people in the world right there.
And, being a proud Torontonian, being here for 28 of my 28 years on this world. I love the city of Toronto, but there are some different personalities and attitudes that sometimes come with it. And back to St. John's, I arrive in St. John's, our local broker owner picks me up from the airport, takes me to the hotel, helps me check in. A top agent out there, a gentleman by the name of Rob Moore, a dear friend of mine, says, take the keys to my car for the week. No, Rob, I can expense a rental car, no problem. No, drive my car. And so those type of key individuals and the relationships that you make from this industry is what I really valuable. I know it goes beyond real estate. I know it goes to friendships. We still communicate quite regularly. Hey, I'm in whatever city. I might be in Ottawa, and somebody might say, hey, I'd love to take you out for drinks and see you. Or you might go out to Kelowna, or where our Western Remax Canada head office is. And you're in a safe haven, you're in a good place with the people who are there. And, that's not to say that there aren't some not so great people in this industry as well, but for the most matter, I'd say it's a majority are quite kind and quite nice, and hopefully eager to learn, willing to learn.
So passion, would you say, obviously those folks are passionate.
Mm-hmm.
How would you define though that passion for real estate? Would you say that this is about helping other people? Would you say that it's about it, loving the transaction, the deal, the chase?
Yeah, I think, at the core roots, the fundamentals of our business is that, simply put, we're speaking residentially, a residential home, a family home, is 99% of people's number one financial asset. And they want to know that they're in good hands through the transaction. One of the first things I did upon graduating university about 8 years ago now was I attended a mastermind summit. And the gentleman on stage who was teaching was saying, what's the most important fundamental for an agent to have? Is it your CRM? Is it your tech? Is it your social media presence? And virtually nobody in the audience guessed it, but the number one component is trust. And I think when it comes to 99% of people's financial asset, they want to know that they're going to be in the hands of somebody that they can trust, somebody who's going to facilitate the transaction to really ensure that they're either, if they're on the selling side, they're going to get the most asset value for their home that they can get, or if they're on the buying side, they're going to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and that all the contract stipulations are in a good place. So for passion, it's for me, it's really helping those individuals secure their family home, because so many people, they're putting all of their, if not all, but majority of their family's wealth into this home, whether it's a little auto body shop, whether it's a social media business, whether it's a food franchise. It's something that they wake up and every single day they go and they work hard to provide for their family. Well, we in the real estate industry, we get to help them to help find that home where they're going to put their loved ones in. Because, staying on this topic of passion, I'll say Do I absolutely love real estate? Yeah, I really like it. Do I, would I be distraught if if it ended in this world? I'd probably be okay. But ultimately, we wake up every day because we want to provide for the ones we love, right?
Yeah.
We want to provide for our family, our friends, or people who are close to us, so that we can live that better quality of life or make a difference while we're here. And seeing people handle the transaction, seeing specifically, even as a little plug here, our Remax agents handle the transaction. It makes me very proud to be affiliated with this brand.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's you said the key word right there, and it's help. And you said it multiple times, and I think that that's help is the biggest thing that most people need to pick up on, is that that is exactly what we were doing. We're helping people buy and sell the biggest asset in their entire life. And as long as we have that in mind, that's where I believe we find the good agents. That's where we find the people that have longevity in this business, have multiple clients, have repeat and referral. They really make the money, as you said, one of the points there, the key points to being in the game. That all starts though with the fact that you are there to help. You are not there for your own transaction. And when you
Mhm.
can see it that way, I believe that more opportunities really bring to themselves.
Yeah,
Uh,
and educating your consumer base as well, absolutely critical. We saw last night the Bank of Canada raise key interest rates
Oh
by
yeah.
25 basis points, so it continues to go up. And we're not seeing quite the numbers we had in 2019 and 2020, even 2021 for that matter, the early parts. But we're not seeing that buyer reluctancy that we saw in 2022. We're definitely turning back into a seller's market. So educating them and letting them know that don't continue to sit on the sidelines, but get in the game. There's another sports reference for us. But the more you sit still, you either got to be going forward, and if not, you're going backwards. But guess what? Staying in the middle of the road is just as equal. You're going to get hit. So make a decision and go one direction.
Now, as you talk about educating, back to your role there, dealing with the franchisees, dealing with owners. What is the biggest challenge that most franchisees have as these markets continue to shift? Technology continues to evolve. The world continues to change. The rates. What are you finding? What are you hearing out there is the biggest challenge right now that people are facing?
I think it's a two-prong kind of approach. It's one, it's accountability, and two, it's continuous learning and adaptation. Those are the biggest components from my standpoint, from what I see. It's one, are you picking up the phone? Are you recruiting the agents from the competitors that are out there, the recruiting pool that you have opportunity to go after? And B, are you articulating the value proposition to the agents within your brokerage, so much so that they want to stay with you, retain you? Because we all know, if two come in the front door but one goes out the back door, your net gain is only one. So how do you continue to do both? And then the other point I was making was learning and adaptation. It's so critical to embrace a growth mindset and to continuously seek new opportunities to learn and improve. Just this past week, I had the fortunate ability to attend a young business leaders seminar in Switzerland, and one of our keynote speakers there was a lady by the name of Amy Lowe. She's the chief of global wealth management for the global bank UBS, based out of Zurich in Switzerland. And through her presentation, she talked about three critical things that you need to look out for. And one is staying humble, two is listening, and three is smiling, which I thought were just three great basic fundamentals, but what an awesome reminder. And at the end of her presentation, we had an opportunity to ask a Q&A. And I looked around, and it didn't seem like any of my peers were raising their hand or wanted to ask a question. So hand shot up, and I just asked Amy. I said, Amy, you talk about those three terms, and specifically listening to the individual who's across from you. And we've probably all heard 2 ears, 1 mouth. And what do you do with that? And so I said, what are the best questions to be asking those trusted advisors, those senior employees within your company that have so much experience ahead of you that you can learn from? And you know what her response was to me?
What's
She
that?
said, what should I do more of, and what should I do less of? And I thought it was brilliant, because here's an opportunity to compliment yourself on what you do really well. But on the other hand, there's going to be some harsh constructive criticism on, what you're really not doing so well. And you need to do less of that, and you need to do more of what you're doing well. So those would be my suggestions.
Gotcha. Interesting. So now as we talk about that, I would then ask you, in your opinion, what do agents and even owners need to be doing to, ensure that they're running what we might call a healthy business? Would you have summed that up maybe based on what you just said?
Yeah, it sounds like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think recruiting and retention is absolutely critical. It's adaptation, like I just mentioned. The importance of setting clear goals. Have you heard the acronym SMART goals by chance?
Yeah.
So it's, if I can dive into it just a little bit, it's a really great approach for setting both long and short-term goals. And it discusses the significance of having specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goals. And by setting SMART goals, it helps clearly provide kind of what the direction is and what the focus is, and track progress, right? Again, those 2 points I made earlier, but accountability. If you're not tracking progress, if you're just saying, I really want to do X, Y, and Z this year, but you don't understand the ABC to get there, you'll never make it to the finish line. And then along the way, what other letters of the alphabet make up that end goal, that end result? And if you're not spelling those other letters out, you're never going to make it to X, Y, and Z.
Knowing what it is that you want to achieve is one thing. Having the path and the right steps to get there, that's the journey to actually get you there. I was working through with a client of mine the other day with some goals of his, and he had written down his lifetime goals and he had sent them to me. And we were breaking those down because you can't take lifetime goals and expect to achieve them this year. It's going to take time. So how do you break that down? So we started to really chunk down what he wanted, like in life. And as we broke it down, we started to make it realistic to what he's got to do this year. If we say, there's a 10-year plan, and you go and you basically take what he wants, you divide by 10, you say, okay, this is what we've got to accomplish this year. And then he had a whole number of different things that he wanted to accomplish. And as we're working through those and we're starting to really break them down into more finite incremental pieces annually, he started to look and go, wow, I've never thought about it this way, number one. And number two, it makes me think that I've gone like way too big. And there was a part of me that said, hey, going big is okay, right? Scaring yourself is okay. Instilling a little bit of fear, it's okay. It means you're challenging yourself. Now, sometimes we might go way too big and it may just be completely unattainable just for the fact that it's so unrealistic. Again, in the same breath, I say there's nothing wrong with going big. Much the same when you start to break it down, as you were just saying there, you start to really break it down into incremental pieces and say, what are those steps I need to take? Now we know whether this stuff is achievable or not.
So it's so well said. I've one of the fortunate parts of my job is I also get to do some public speaking, whether that's presenting or whether that's kind of illustrating some of the things we're working on here at head office. And oftentimes my friends will come up to me and colleagues alike and say, do you really enjoy that aspect? Many of us know public speaking is probably one of the number one world's largest fears in this world. And I say there's points where I'm uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is good because you're growing from it, right? And it's challenging, and life is hard. It's not supposed to be easy. There's so many things that'll get in your way. There's hurdles that will overcome, and you grow from those hurdles. And, so many times I've been pushed to uncomfortable scenarios in my life, up on stage in front of large groups of people. But whether it goes well or if it doesn't go well, you grow from it. And it's about getting those reps and then another one and another one. So critical. So
there's the sports analogy again, getting the reps in.
Yes.
We say that all the time. It's funny you bring up the public speak and how so many people in the world have this. It's one of their biggest fears. I don't know what's wrong with me. I mean, thank God my wife's not here. She'd probably have a list. For me, I love public speaking. It's what we've built part of our business doing, is being able to address large audiences. That said, when you talk about, that uncomfortable part, that little part of even maybe nerves, I remember asking Simon Sinek this one day. We were in the green room and I said, do you still get nervous? And he looked at me and says, David, if you don't get nervous, do you even care? And I thought, which kind of took a little bit of the nerves away, because now you go, okay, so it's okay to have that adrenaline rush. It's okay to do that. But putting yourself in those positions to be a little bit uncomfortable, this is where growth is achieved.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think being uncomfortable it's a good thing. Being pushed to those boundaries is a good thing. You grow from it. So absolutely. Well said by Simon. He's a brilliant.
He's really good. Now we know that agents are the biggest asset to brokers, to owners. And there's a bigger desire now, more than ever in my mind, to go out there and recruit. I think that, I've seen that over the past 5 to 10 years where it's been all about recruiting, and I'm sure it was way back when, but it seems like there's an influx to that. So I might ask now, from your view, what characteristics does the ideal recruit possess, and what would make that's the person that you want? Or does this whole process of recruiting come back to, just take anybody you can get and try to train them to be better? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Or if it works, it works.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a combination of both. For sure, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
And constant references, but Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You can tell we're sports guys, right?
and so if you're not taking them, if you're not trying to grow them, you'll never know. That being said, I have a lot of friends who I'd either gone to university with, through elementary school, through social settings, sports, whatever it is, that are recently getting licensed. And, a lot of them will come up to me and they'll say, Simon, what's that secret sauce? Like, what do you got to do to make it in this world? And what I say? I say, secret sauce, there's really 3 things. 1, and most important, you got to be genuine. 2, you got to show up on a regular basis. And 3, you got to deliver on those action items. And you do those 3 things continuously, and it's a recipe for success. Now, while you do those 3 things, who chooses to leverage different items, whether that's tech, whether that's the brand, whether that's a strong mentor, that's really going to define your success and how much your trajectory is going up, going forward. So, I think we've all heard the phrase data is the new oil. And leveraging data and analytics is so critical in our generation. You hear our parents' generation, both of us probably experienced this, but you became a real estate agent. Here's the phone. Here's the yellow phone book. Get to work, right? And, some made it, some sunk and didn't make it. Yeah. But in today's day and age, we see the importance of our CRM. We see the importance and the emergence of ChatGPT coming out and what that does for you, back into our earlier conversation of efficiencies. How much can you really streamline your processes, so much so that you're making efficient use of your time. The agents, they need to be willing to go out there. They need to be willing to have conversations. I think we're very fortunate within the RE/MAX network. We have an incredible group of entrepreneurial broker owners, but also entrepreneurial agents as well. And you meet these individuals when you attend these world-class events that we put on. And at those events, you start to see the relationships forming. You start to see agents from Ottawa be friends with agents from Calgary, and agents from Halifax be friends with agents from Winnipeg. And they start to share their best practices together because they feel less of a competitor in a local market, but in the same industry, just placed elsewhere. So really leveraging data, utilizing the network, and being genuine would be my 3 pieces of advice for those newly licensed agents, for those agents coming into the industry.
Okay. So we see from that side, then we look and say, in order to recruit, not only does the recruit themselves need to have the right character traits, but so does the owner. So part of that would then be articulating that and maybe saying, how does the owner articulate that? Or is it the brand doing that? I guess that conveyance down the line of that message to say, this is why you want to be here. How does the owner go about that? Is that something that they allow the brand to do? Or is that something, again, does this come back to the idea of relationships and communication?
Yeah, I think like any good organization, it starts from top down leadership, right? And so if the broker owner, if those key managers within the office aren't doing the right fundamentals, aren't showing up themselves on a regular basis, the agents will see that. but they need to leverage what we can offer here at head office, but what they can offer themselves. And you see that within the network. We have some franchisees who are really just solely relying on us to be the value proposition in their brokerage. And then you see some of our really great ones creating value proposition within their network, within their brokerage themselves. So that could be peer-to-peer sharing, networking. That could be morning training. That could be community involvement events. Our best franchisees, our best brokerages are the ones who are taking their own quote unquote personal branding, but then also leveraging the corporate branding as well.
Which I want to circle back to in a moment here. But I did want to ask sort of in conjunction with that would you say that that's, getting out to the networking, communicating with the colleagues, being at the events, is this how we fine tune the skills for the growth trajectory? Or what else do you suggest people are doing on a regular just to make sure they're fine tuning so that they're continuing for growth, whether it's, again, the agent at the, call it, feet on the street level, or it's the broker owner who is trying to bring those people in and create that culture for success?
Yeah, it's constant education.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think no matter how much of a pedigree you have, whether that's an undergraduate, whether that's a master's, whether that's a PhD, you'll never have too much education. You can always learn something from somebody. It's embracing innovation. It's embracing change. Simply put, in this world, nothing stays static. And the ones who do stay still, the ones who, fail to innovate, fail to embrace change, often get left behind. Now, there's some really great agents who, simply put, they focus on their fundamentals, but you can see some of the newer agents who are coming into it. They're taking a bit of best of the both worlds. They're taking some of those strong fundamental agents, who pick up the phone, who are master negotiators, who are real experts in their craft. But then you're seeing some of the younger agents who are great on social media, who are reaching out to each other, are utilizing ChatGPT. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with agents within our network recently that said, oh yeah, that listing bio, I just typed in a few different characteristics of the home and that's what spit out on ChatGPT, and that's what it's up there now. But as a result of all these things, you can scale your business. You can do more. You can really increase your productivity. So those newer agents, I'd obviously recommend education. I'd recommend embracing innovation, embracing change, and just leaning into that network that we have here. It's really incredible.
Okay, so talk to me when we say newer agents. Let's talk to this mindset of instant gratification. What do people really need to know about instant gratification and whether or not that is a reality in this business or even in the overall of life itself?
Yeah, I'm smiling over here while you say
Yeah,
that.
I knew you would be.
It's so true. We see so much of that. And, Toronto Real Estate Board, approximately 50,000 realtors on the board right now, of which 80% of the transactions are done by 10% of the realtors, right? It's really bonkers on terms of, but it goes to show that the good ones are doing the right things right. Simply put, it just doesn't come. It's that 1% daily, and one of the best books I've ever read is The Compound Effect.
Yeah.
And it talks about that. It talks about doing the little things right continuously, and what it does over the long term results in large scale benefits, large scale wins. And so, I think of there's a U.S. Navy SEAL admiral, and he's got a great message on something that might sound quite mundane, quite small in the grand scheme of things, but making your bed every day, right? And so you wake up, you make your bed every day, and you've accomplished your first task. And while it's something very small, it encourages you to strive to accomplish more tasks throughout the day. And no matter what, no matter how bad, no matter how horrible of a day you might end up having, you will always come home to a freshly made bed with the hopes and aspiration that tomorrow will be a better day. And it's about doing those fundamental little things right that in the long term end up being the big things.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is trying to do the little things and do them consistently. We feel that a lot of that is very mundane. I've said this many a time, but and you've brought up CRM a few times today now. Adding a new contact into your CRM Why do most people not do it? And simply put, I've boiled it down to because it's hard work. Now you could chuckle at that and say, wait a second, go into the CRM and like type a few letters and put their name in there. That's not really hard work, but it's monotonous. It's boring. It doesn't seem like it's doing anything. And so people don't do enough of it. And I mean, I truly believe, especially with all this talk about lead generation and what we've got to do to go and get new leads, I believe people need to look at it and say, hey, if you can meet one new person a day and put that one new person a day into your database, that's 365 new people a year. That's 365 new opportunities.
Mhm.
Most people won't do it because it's just a mundane task and it doesn't feel like it's income producing. Yet that's the key right there. And so many people have trouble doing those little tiny things on a regular basis because they don't feel like they're doing anything. And everybody's searching for that big win. Well, what people need to understand is the big win comes from doing the little things. And if we want to use sports again, this is going back to doing your practice every day. This is the different reps you do. This is, working hard to try to win a game and going through failures and making mistakes and learning what you can do next time and coming back at it again. I mean, listen, this is where teams win championships. And this is where individuals win at life. It is those tiny little things. And so I couldn't agree with you more about that. Now, what about the peaks and valleys though? How does one accept how does one accept it and build off of it that hey, not every day is going to be completely successful?
Yeah, I think there's a critical quote that I live by in life, and it's do not judge those who try and fail, but judge those who fail to try. Right. And back to that CRM you're talking about, why don't people do it? Because I don't think they've done a good enough job really laying out what those, and you and I have different acronyms for this, but same message is what are those revenue generating activities? And are you doing those on a regular basis? Because if you aren't, there won't be large results. But if you are, then you will continuously see those proven results. And life's not easy, right? I've said that earlier. Life's hard. And that's what makes the peaks and the valleys, that's what really defines them, right? The valleys suck. And when you're in them, it's hard to get out. But guess what? When you're on the climb and you make it to the top, it feels that much better. There's been many moments during my franchise sales days where I felt like I was running in a circle, and I'd find a new prospect and you'd bring them through the sales journey and you'd get it right to the finish line just to be told, no, we're not going to sell them, or there's a franchisee close around the corner. And, I'm pounding my head against the wall. But guess what? When those really good ones did sell, when those big ones sold, I'd close the door to my office and let out a couple of celebratory words and excitement. So you got to do that every once in a while because we're here, we're living, and you got to make sure you're celebrating your successes just as much as you're understanding and realizing your failures as well.
And I think that's an important point, and I would double down on that and say to everybody, this is where we come back to share your wins and share your losses. Mm-hmm. The more you can do that, the more you will become just capable of sharing. And sharing is another way to say we're communicating. And communicating is another way to build relationships. And when you're building relationships, you end up building trust and opportunities find themselves. And so it's really, really important to share both. And much the same too, we're not going to have wins every single day. We're going to have challenges. And so the more open we are with ourselves, and this is not for anybody else, this is for ourselves, the more open we are to share both sides, the more we find this sort of level playing field to everything we're doing. And we realize that those peaks and valleys don't need to be as drastic when we go through them. Instead, we're a lot more resilient to what the changes are that are happening in our world.
Yeah, and discipline, right? You mentioned Simon Sinek. I'm a big lover and follower of Jim Rohn. And his great quote is, in life, you can choose to be disciplined or choose to have regret, where discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. And it's so true. You can choose to discipline. You can choose to apply yourself. You can wake up early. You can work out, get to the office, come home, spend time with your family, friends, loved ones, whatever it is. Or you can choose to be complacent. You can choose to be lazy, sleep in, not contribute, show up late, shirt untucked, whatever it is. Neglect your family, and that's going to weigh so much heavier on you for the rest of your life than it was to be disciplined. And even if you don't hit those goals or you don't hit the successes that you were maybe striving for, that you were going towards, at the very least, you can tell yourself, I was disciplined throughout my process and I didn't necessarily make it to where I wanted to go, but I don't have any regret because I put my best foot forward. That's what's most critical.
Well, hey, we talked about time, right? And time's a finite resource. So as we talk about discipline, how much emphasis, and I know we brought this up sort of at the top of the show there, but how much emphasis do you put on the strategy of preparation in your day? Because that in itself is a discipline. Like that's something that people, again, back to, sorry to cut you off there. No. Back to my whole like little sort of joke about how it's really not hard to put people into a contact list, yet it's one of the hardest things for people to do. Mm. When it comes back to preparation in a day and like looking ahead to tomorrow and looking ahead to the day after and saying, what needs to be done so that I am ready to put my best foot forward? That's a discipline that we find a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, preparation is critical. And I learned this very early on in my career, especially being thrown into a sales role right out of university, right out of my commerce degree. And I came in spring chicken. Oh, I'm going to analyze this. I'm going to look at these data metrics. The numbers don't lie. We've all heard that. But simply put, preparation helps your relatability and helps that prospect in front of you. For my circumstance, it was competing franchisees of either branded companies or independent companies. And it's really getting in front of them and talking to them and understanding the market they're in. I mentioned the Maritimes and Atlantic Canada earlier, but you go into St. John, not St. John's, but St. John, New Brunswick. And you go out and, you meet with the franchisee, you meet with the individual there. For us, it's a gentleman by the name of Gordon Bro. He's a great man, but you need to understand, the Irving family, they dominate the New Brunswick market through oil, through their Kleenex, through their pulp and paper factory. And so many of the people who are buying the homes are working in these factories, and that is their income. And if you don't understand that, there's no relatability. And if I'm coming from Toronto and I'm going to these markets that aren't my local home, you need to study them. You need to understand what makes it up. What is the capital city for your respective province? What are the nearby towns? What are the feeder cities? What are the main tourist attractions? What are the main economic hubs in these areas? Because if you don't understand those, they're going to say, you don't really get this market. You're not worth my time, right? But if you do, they say, wow, this guy really gets his stuff. So I'd study exactly all those things I'd mentioned. I'd study who the top agents were within the brokerage. I'd study what the history of the brokerage, maybe what their key affiliation is. And there's a great broker owner here in Brampton, a gentleman by the name of Mike Siccato. And his words was always inflict pain. And back to the 2 ears, 1 mouth, you have to listen to what they care, because, I might go into a meeting and saying, RE/MAX, we have the most units sold, we have the most volume sold, we're a global brand, but they don't want to hear anything about that. They only want to hear about our philanthropic efforts with Children's Miracle Network and what we're contributing there. And that's really but on the flip side, somebody might not want to hear anything about our philanthropic efforts, and they want to know what CRM we're offering or what our affiliations. So you need to listen to what they're saying to you, ask more questions, and then usually on the follow-up meeting, deliver on what they want to hear. And that's how you'll have most success.
Now, you had said to me in a previous conversation, hard work will always trump intelligence.
Maybe because I'm not the smartest individual.
Well, hey, man, listen, if we're the smartest person in the room, we're in the wrong room, are we not?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But expand on that one for me. I mean, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, showing up regularly. I mentioned that earlier. It's being genuine, but it's working hard. It's making sure that you deliver on those deliverables that are required of you. There some people who want to be book smarts may not have the social skills, may not have the presenting skills. If you find the combination of both, well, that's an individual you really want to latch onto. And, I heard an interesting statistic the other day saying that if you're in the company of a top producer, somebody who works hard, somebody who has a past track record of success, automatically your productivity increases by 15%. But on the flip side, if you're in the same room and you're working along somebody who's lazy, complacent, and doesn't work hard, your productivity decreases by 30%. Wow. So nearly double the vice versa. So it's really that exactly. It's surrounding yourself with the right individuals. And, we've all heard your combination of the 5 best friends. And I think there's some merit to that. For sure, you want to surround yourself with people who are like-minded, people who are willing to work hard, people who have the same core values of that. But, maybe just because someone doesn't have the same financial circumstances as you or success that you've had in your life doesn't mean that they're not a great individual, and what they do for you from a social standpoint, what they do for you from a personal standpoint, being that key confidant in life to lean into, to talk to when you're in those valleys we talked about earlier, because those are the ones that are going to keep pushing you up to those peaks. And sometimes, those people who they just want to be around you because, you have that success or you have that track record or you have those connections, when the going gets tough, they leave you. And when those other people who are there supporting you, that don't care what you have to offer, but rather who you are as an individual, those are the ones you keep on to in life. And I can tell you, I've got some really great friends in life who support me in those different avenues.
I really like the way you define that, man. I like that because we've heard that so often. If again, I just said it. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You're a byproduct of the 5 people you hang around most with. But I'll look around the 5 people I hang around most with, and we've got similarities. We've all got major differences. We've all got maybe different aspirations, and it doesn't mean that any one of us is better or worse than the other. We are different people. I would also go the distance to say that at some point, yes, you certainly want to surround yourself with good people, but not do it for self-serving reasons. Do it almost in the way where, how can I help you? And I believe when everybody's living in that type of mindset, people get better around them. And look, I know Remax is out there constantly looking to help, your network, your agents across, the country, the world become better. And as we look at the brand itself, and we touched on branding very briefly earlier on, but as we look at the brand itself, you know, the name is synonymous with real estate. And I think that is a, goes without saying, you could wear that balloon on your lapel anywhere you go in this world, on this planet, and people recognize what you do for a living. And from a guy who, lives and breathes the marketing, the branding, building the Mindshare, Remax has certainly done that. They've built the Mindshare when it comes to the word real estate. Now, you also mentioned, there's going to be people out there that they care about the numbers. They care about the market domination. They care about that. There's other people that don't care anything about it. Instead, they look for the philanthropic stuff that you guys are doing. I wanted to just take a quick moment here because I think it goes without saying to say where Remax falls into in the grand scheme of, the size, the stature, the numbers, the volume, the successes. But moreover, how is Remax bettering the communities that you guys are in? And I wanted to take a moment to touch on that because I think that is that is the important.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, David. And thanks for asking it. I mentioned earlier our Children's Miracle Network, and it's something we're extremely proud of. And simply put, we wouldn't have the impact that we have without the generosity of our agents across Canada, our broker owners across Canada, but for the world, for that matter, the United States as well. And last year, as a brand, Remax was able to contribute $11.4 million towards Children's Miracle Network. And wow. Those dollars are being used on emergency procedures, breakthrough innovations, research, and ultimately saving thousands of lives. Furthermore, because I'm a proud Canadian, here in Canada, of that 11.4, we donated 5.2.
Oh, wow. So hold on, 11.4 was worldwide?
11.4 worldwide and 5.2 for Canada. So just a little bit below. Yeah, it's incredible, honestly.
That is awesome. Congrats to all of you.
Thank you. And it really, like I said earlier, it's really the agents and the broker owners who are making those contributions. But it's an incredible number, and to be just below 50% of the total contribution, where here in Canada we have about 25,000 agents, 21,000 of that being in our core owned Remax holding region, but also another 4,000 in our independent region, which is still the province of Quebec. To see them contributing almost 50% of that total while only having around 20% of the agent base worldwide really speaks volumes of the generosity of our agents here in Canada. So it's a metric that I'm extremely proud of.
We were just down in Cooperstown, New York, for a baseball tournament. As you know, there were 3 Canadian baseball teams out of 84 teams. And we were the first team to go and register and check in. It just happened to be. And, we came down with our flags, and we came down, we got Cooperstown t-shirts made, and they had the Canadian flag on them. We wanted to represent Canada proudly. We were asked to sing the national anthem in front of like 2,000 people right there on the field. And it was, again, a representation of, the country. So I take that. I'm a proud Canadian as well. And I think it's a very cool, it's a nod to all of us up here north of the border for, the generosity and the good hearted spirits that everybody has. And it's awesome to see what Remax is doing and the involvement to help the kids. Cause again, as we look down the road at the end of the day, when everybody looks back on, what they regret or what they wish they could have, should have, would have, it always comes back to spending more time with family and taking better care of themselves. And I think that, obviously the Children's Miracle Network is very, very, dedicated to doing that and helping families stick together and grow and continue to enjoy. So again, just a congrats to you. Congrats to all the agents that are part of your network for such an accomplishment. That is amazing.
Thank you, David. Something we're very proud of.
Now, I also want to bring up very briefly, and not to spend too much time on this, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but I'm going to bring it up. As I bring up the fact that Remax has built such an incredible amount of Mindshare, and again, you and I talked about this when we talked on the phone one day, and we brought up the word Kleenex, and Kleenex is just a brand. Mm-hmm. Yet most people say, "Pass me a Kleenex."
Yes,
and I think that just the Remax has earned this, but Remax has created that when it comes to real estate. And it's not that somebody says, I want to go sell my Remax. They say, I want to sell my real estate, but it's, the idea being the two words go hand in hand. And one thing I wanted to just share with everybody tuned in is that, especially when you're a part of this brand, the colors, the red, white, and the blue. And although we are Canadian, we want to be proud Canadian, red, white, and blue, stands out as Remax colors. It also stands out to say real estate. And it's amazing to watch how others that are not within the brand leverage those colors for that. But it's also incredible to watch people that are within the brand that want to stray away from those colors. And so to anybody that's tuned in right now, that's hearing that, and if you're not using the colors, but you're with the brand, don't take it offensively. I'm really just trying to reemphasize the power of this brand and what it does for, Simon, what we talked about with trust and building relationships and connections. So I just wanted to give a little extra oomph to that and just say to everybody, take advantage of what this brand power has provided. It really is a powerful thing worldwide, and it really does create opportunities for you well beyond, what you might just do on your own. And so maybe that's just more of a statement from me. If you want to add, feel free. But if you don't, I totally understand that as well.
No, it's so well said. And thanks for mentioning it, David. I'll just say, absolutely. There's so much to be said about the red, white, and blue colors and what it means. It's synonymous with real estate. And, I can't tell how many people who have come from competing brands and have come over and they said when they're going into a listing presentation or they're trying to pick up a new buyer client, they don't need to explain themselves when they hand their business card over. They understand right away that you're in real estate. And that's not to be said. There's absolutely a place for leveraging your own personal brand, mm-hmm. but in conjunction with what the large red, white, and blue Remax and brand can do together as well. To go changing the colors, it's just, in my opinion, it's a missed opportunity. But
that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to knock anybody that would not, but I see it like that, because look, we've already agreed on this right off the top of the show. We both grew up in this game. Yes. And as I drive down the street today, when I see signs that I don't recognize or colors that don't jump out at me from a marketer, from a brander, from a guy who's been living in the sandbox of real estate for 40 years, to me, it's a missed opportunity. I think those were the perfect words for it right there. It's just a missed opportunity at like jumping out and getting that recognition. Yes. Anyhow, all that being said, the day is over. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
It's a great question. I think it's ensuring that those action items that you set out at the beginning of the day have been delivered. It's always setting that to-do checklist. What are we waking up? What do we want to achieve today? And ultimately, I'll go back to is what revenue generating activity have you done today? And if you can't think of any, it hasn't been a success. If you can think of a few, it's been a good day. right? And it's doing those 1%. It's not going to have instant gratification. You're not going to do it just in one day, but it's doing those 1%, knowing that you're striving towards something down the road, that there's an end target in sight, and you've made progress towards it. Hopefully a little bit more progress than our City of Toronto public transit system tends to make on a daily basis, but progress nonetheless.
We're talking about, the Don Mills line.
Yeah, the Eglinton line.
Eglinton line over there. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right. So I have some final words of wisdom that you want to share with everybody here, so that they can get out, build more mind share, create more market share, just anything that you want to leave behind with our listeners before we sign off.
Yeah, there's one final quote that I think I live by, and I talk back to my franchise sales days. It gave me such good experience, and I remember driving from Toronto to southeastern Ontario, and I was going to meet with the prospect, and I drive around 2.5, 3 hours, and I get there, I'm waiting in the coffee shop, and the gentleman says, "Sorry, I can't make it today, but thanks for coming." So here I've driven 3 hours, and I'm driving back, and I drive back. So 6 hours of my day wasted, huffing and puffing. And I get back and I chat with a very close mentor of mine. And, the gentleman says to me, he says, "Simon, those who anger you conquer you, and don't let anybody conquer you." And it's normal to be a human, to get frustrated, to let your emotions get the best of you. It's in our human nature. But if you can limit that, if you can really control your frustration, you're going to be focused on more productivity. Don't let people frustrate you. The world, life's short. Make it a positive one, and really help those around you. And you'll see the results in the end. But that's what I have to share today, David. And thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're an incredibly busy individual. It's been a fantastic conversation. I can't believe 60 minutes has gone by so quickly here today, but I love the way you summed that up. You're right. Life is short. And I'm going to take those same words away and try to bury those deep in my head so I can remember those as well. It's very, very well said. But once again, Simon, thank you for joining us today on the Mindshare podcast.
Thanks, David. You're a total professional. All the best.
Thanks, bud. You're either watching us live, you're listening to this recording, you are on one of your favorite podcast platforms, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you are there, be sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle. This is our 31-page ebook packed with a 90-day social media content calendar, all of it to help you build more mindshare so that you get more market share. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching, an in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event, and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Of course, don't forget, please, to go over to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. We'd love if you could take a quick moment, give us a big 5 stars, give us a little review, let us know how much you love the show. And of course, share with all your friends. Once again, that's ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. As well, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to thank Kits Keep In Touch Systems as well as REM Real Estate Magazine for sponsoring the Mindshare podcast. Be sure to visit our site to learn more about what these powerful companies will do to help you grow your business. This has been another episode of the Mindshare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.